Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far. Where are my friends today? Do I have friends today? What happened? Wait, hang on. No one showed up today. Ah, nuts. I forgot to schedule an episode. Hey, everyone, let me start over. It's just me today. It's the titular Talking Tongue. Finally. Remember when we used to do this alone? When I used to just talk into the ether on Facebook? This used to be a live stream show where I would awkwardly talk to myself, usually to a small audience, sometimes large, but mostly small audience who would interact with me on Facebook. But hey, it's just me today. No Facebook live stream, no Zoom calls, no nothing else like that. It's just tongue the way it should be. Just kidding. So the thing with this week is that I went to Ottawa last week. That was the first time in 2 years, and with the whole hubbub, and this is going to sound like an excuse, but I swear to you, I guess it is kind of an excuse. I did not schedule a guest because, listen, I was so pumped to see people and friends in person. I got to see my family, my extended family, my family dog. It was just a whirlwind of just real life stuff away from the podcasting world. And it felt great, honestly. It really did. And then I was thinking, I'm like, man, in the back of my head, I forgot to schedule a Talking Tongue to release on Monday. Darn it. With all of the stuff going on, like a couple weeks ago, the Podcavern website was down, so I had to skip a week of Talking Tongue then. And then I missed Monday, which was just Thanksgiving Monday. And then I felt kind of bad. I was like, you know what? I've been meaning to talk about this Squid Game thing forever. And I know a lot of people who watch Squid Game. And the thing is, I had a hard time, scheduling them for a talk while I was in Ottawa and whatever. So I thought of the idea of like, you know what? Let's break all the molds of what Talking Tongue is. Let's release on another day of the week just for this exception. And let's just go at solo dolo, baby. Let's see what happens. Now, of course, I will get to Squid Game at some point. But we usually start the show about how things are going with the guest. And Tongue, how are you doing today? Well, I'm doing pretty well. It's been a while since I've talked to myself like this, so this is starting to sound like a ramble. Listen, I had an amazing time in Ottawa. That's where I grew up, and just seeing some old friends that I haven't seen in so long, and just trying to cram in safely, of course, double vaxxed and distanced if we have to, masks, all that good stuff. And it was just such a joy to reconnect with people in person, which is, I think the pandemic makes you afraid of, oh man, can I interact with people one-on-one again? I'm just used to this veil of computers and ones and zeros and Zoom meetings that I don't remember how to speak to people in person. And the reality is that I felt as though once I saw people, everything started to click together. And that's just a wonderful thing, isn't it? I went ahead and bought myself an OLED Switch. For those of you who don't know, it's like a $500 Nintendo Switch, which has a much nicer screen, and that's about it. But hey, I got, without getting too much into it, I got promoted at work, which was an amazing thing because part of my job is now podcasting. So look, I'm a professional, and a professional is allowed to skip a little bit of a week of a weekly drop. And what I'm trying to say is that it's okay that I missed Monday's release. It's being released anyways this week. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. Besides that, hey, I'm here to talk about the news of the week. Let's start talking about it. Now, I, of course, usually try to cater all the interests to my guests of the week, but this time out, I'm going to go ahead and talk about something that I like, and that's Kingdom Hearts. For those of you who don't know, Kingdom Hearts is anime-esque Disney crossover with famous Square Enix properties, mainly Final Fantasy, or it used to be like this this kid with a sword that is also a key. It's called a key blade, and he's like a 14-year-old kid saving the world and all that jazz from the darkness and teaming up with Donald and Goofy. And it's a really, really popular, if not one of the most convoluted video games I have ever played in my life. But it was such a joy to see that this character is making it into the new Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yay! So if you're like me and you like that character, then you're also excited that this character is also in Super Smash Bros. Hey, listen, before I get into more of the news of the week, which of course is IGN headlines that I'm reading for the first time ever. Truly, this is usually I get to stall when I talk to a guest. I'm like scrolling to see the next relevant news story, and the only guest is me. So this is really interesting. But what I was trying to say is that I kind of glossed over the part where last weekend was Thanksgiving, and I have to say it is easily my favorite meal of the year because turkey dinner is so freaking good at my parents' place and my family's place, and I forgot about that. And there was things like I'm at the part of the show where I'm describing food, where there was roast beef, there's buns, there's mashed potatoes, there's green beans, there's Brussels sprouts, there's dessert, there's apple pie, ice cream. It was just so nice to eat a meal like that, and honestly to not cook for a week, because when you live with at least my parents, I was going to say all Asian parents, which I assume most of it's true, but I'm going to not speak for everyone and just say my parents. You don't have to cook. They do it for you, and they make the best shit ever, and it's just amazing. And I always try to learn a family recipe every time I'm home, because I want to preserve that part of my family tradition, which is just making kick-ass Vietnamese food, or, Canadian food with a Vietnamese spin to it, which is all to say that it just tastes better somehow. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, it was just nice not to cook at home. And isn't that what Thanksgiving is all about? Not really. Most people contribute to Thanksgiving dinner, but this year I did not really. I mean, Laura, she made cookies, and I said I was part of that venture. Okay, where was I? Okay, let's go back to saying my point about Thanksgiving was really just to say I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. And with that, let's messily segue over to some more news stories of the week. And I don't know if there's anything that interesting. Let's see. Joker 2. Joaquin Phoenix is still open to a sequel, but doesn't know if it's happening. Really quickly, I don't think that should happen. Upon reflection of Joker 2, which when I saw it, I was like, this is pretty cool. It's just all of the fans of Joker just seemed like to be like the worst people. And if you didn't know or don't remember, Joker ends on this cliffhanger basically saying, was this all in this guy's head? And if you make a sequel to Joker, you pretty much would say, yeah, you know what? It wasn't in his head. Now we can continue the story, I assume. And I think that just kind of ruins the movie. So here we go. Another story we have here is that I don't even want to say this. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, smashed the box office. It absolutely destroyed the box office, beating pretty much every single movie this year and any other previous years during the same month and week or whatever it is. And all I'm trying to say is that it beat Shang-Chi at the opening box office weekend numbers, and I hate that. And I will do an episode on Venom because I literally saw this today. I will probably do it next week, but my short version of Venom is that it is a bad movie, and I cannot wait to talk about it next week. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is, WandaVision is getting a spin-off show with Catherine Hahn, who, if you remember, she was Agatha in the WandaVision television show, the Marvel television show, and Catherine Hahn was up for many awards, and she won a lot of them, but she did not win the Emmy, which was unfortunate because I think Catherine Hahn is amazing. But it's interesting that the strength of this very, very tertiary character in the comic books, and Catherine Hahn knocked it out of the park in WandaVision. It's very interesting that this character is now getting like their own show. They're going to show up in more movies and stuff like that. And for those of you who don't know, Agatha is kind of like the another witch in the Marvel universe. I think in the comics, she helps train and teach Scarlet Witch, where in this MCU version, she's just kind of like the nosy neighbor who kind of imparts knowledge, but not on like a teacher kind of way kind of thing. Anyways, it's neither here or there. I just hope it's great because I love Catherine Hahn. Okay, let's see. Things that I don't care about. Sabrina is coming to Riverdale. That means nothing to me. Let's move on. Oh my god. Dragon Ball Super is getting a new movie. If you've seen the trailer of Dragon Ball Super, I think it's called Superheroes or something like that. It just doesn't look great. I mean, it's only a 1-minute teaser, but it looks like a video game animation quality, which is not to say terrible. If someone showed me this trailer and was like, look at this new video game, I'd be like, that's awesome. But because it's a movie, something doesn't sit right with me. And you might not know what I'm talking about, but if you look at the Dragon Ball Super, if you care, superhero trailer, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, wow, they really nailed the animation the last movie they did, but not for this one for whatever reason. The last one was like hand-drawn. It looked really beautiful as Dragon Ball Super Broly, for those of you who care. And I think it was an incredible feat, at least in animation. Even if you didn't care about Dragon Ball, I think you'd come away being like, wow, that move's so fluid. So to see this, the sequel to that movie in a way, it's kind of disappointing. It's just a little kind of disappointing. Okay, next story, we have Timothée Chalamet. I've always said Timothy, but a lot of people lately have been correcting me on how it is saying his name. So Timothée Chalamet, I'm just going to say Chalamet because I feel really pretentious saying Timothée. He released a picture of himself being young Willy Wonka, and it got like 500,000 likes on Twitter, which I have to say, it's one of those things where I'm like, people think I get really pumped about like the most mundane things, like a picture of Willy Wonka, and I just don't care that much. It's like when they released a poster of the Book of Boba Fett and you see Boba Fett sitting in a chair and people are like, holy shit, there he is, Boba Fett sitting in a chair. I'm like, well, we don't really know anything about this, what's happening in this, besides Boba Fett sitting in a chair and Timothée Chalamet in a costume looking to what seems to be reporters, but not smiling. So I can't say if he looks good or bad. I don't even, it's not even in motion. How are we supposed to know this? How does anyone have an opinion based on one single frame? Whatever. I guess that's all I have to say about that. An interesting thing here today, which I kind of love. I'm just going to go ahead. I love it, even though I'm not sure if they could handle it any better. But Superman is gay now. John Kent comes out as bisexual. I'm not very big on the Superman franchise. I've read a lot of Justice League comics, but I haven't read too much Superman comics, to be honest with you. A little bit, but not too much. But apparently Clark Kent and Lois Lane have a kid, and his name's John Kent. I guess he is the new Superman in whatever run they are on now. And he has come out as bisexual, which is amazing because I think big characters like a Superman, like a Batman or whatever, like I'm sure, make them any sexual orientation, make them different genders, make them, as long as like the core values of that character are intact, like justice, say for like Superman, and like just being a hero and like that Boy Scout nature of Superman, or Batman, trouble, dark past, whatever. Like I don't care what if Batman was black, that'd be awesome. Like it's just those superficial quote unquote stuff that people get hung up about is whatever, right? Like I think when it comes to art and media, if we can somehow take away something positive out of it, unless it's really ham-fisted, I guess, if we can take something positive out of it and people can see as kids, say if I was identified as LGBTQ, oh my God, my words. If I identified that way and I saw Superman as bisexual, I'd be like, hell yeah, fuck yeah, see, Superman is. And I hope people get that from this. I hope it doesn't come off as like, that's why I was like a little, like I celebrate this news that Superman is bisexual, but I'm also like, oh, could there have been a better way to introduce the character as bisexual? And I guess the best way is to make his son bisexual, because I guess Clark Kent wouldn't be. I don't know. They could. That wouldn't bother me. Anyways, I have no final point to say except cool. Awesome. I'm glad it's happening to a large character and not like, Polka Dot Man or something like that, someone smaller, or like Calendar Man, or these are all villains that I'm naming, but all of I can't even think of anything. Just think of a smaller hero that people don't care about. But then there's like Superman, who's like, everyone knows who Superman is. All right. Ramble. Okay, so let's see here. I think that's pretty much... Will Poulter has signed on to be Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You might recognize Will Poulter from, I believe, Narnia and... I want to say Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Remember when they made Narnia movies? And he's also in, I believe, that Netflix Choose Your Own Adventure show that was it a Black Mirror episode? I think it was. It was like that you would know what I'm talking about. I think there's only one Choose Your Own Adventure series on Netflix, and it's that one. And Will Poulter's in that, I believe. And he's come up on a bunch of different stuff. So I am excited to see his take on Adam Warlock, who's a Marvel hero, or he's a Marvel guy. And he's an interesting story, which I won't get into because I'm going to sound like a noob because I don't know enough about him except that he's super popular and powerful. I was going to bring up this Dave Chappelle stuff, but I haven't watched the special, except that it sounds like Dave Chappelle might not be as great of a guy, or maybe he has very questionable beliefs and he jokes in things that is a joke but still is harmful to others. I wish I could speak more on this. I truly do. But if that's the case, that sucks, because I only started getting into Chappelle late in life. And when I say getting into, like, very surface level, I barely even watched the Chappelle show. I watched some of his most recent specials and I was like, you know what? That's all right. But hearing about this new one doesn't really make me excited to watch it. And I honestly probably won't. I just probably won't. And the last but not least is Dwayne Johnson. I don't know why I said it like that. Is not backing down on his feud with Vin Diesel. Why? Why is this still a thing? I don't have time to I read the rest of this article, except I'm just skimming here. He only is interested in appearing in these movies as long as he's not in a scene with Vin Diesel. My God, put your dicks away, gentlemen. All right, let's get into the show of the week. Usually I like to talk about these types of things with other people, but I'm going to go at it alone and see how it is. This week we are talking about the ever so popular 2021 Squid Game.
삶의 벼랑 끝에 서 계신 분들입니다. 게임에 참가를 원하지 않는 분은
All right, with Squid Game, there's so much to cover here, and this is kind of why I thought I needed to make this emergency episode. It's like 9 p.m. right now, and I was like, I gotta make an episode because next week I want to talk about Venom, and the week after that maybe James Bond, and the week after, like, there's movies coming out. When are we gonna talk about Squid Game? And if it's not this week, then it's too late. And I'd rather talk about it alone than with nobody at all, so I'll do my best. I'll be honest, before I hit play tonight or record, I didn't really put any thoughts together. So all of these are pretty... it's going to be a little bit of a scattershot of thoughts, but maybe some things... Squid Game has been out for a little while now, and I think all of the theories and all of the discussion has started to hit a climax, is starting to go down a little bit. So I'm not sure how much insight per se that I would have compared to other people, but I will give you my general thoughts. So before we start with that, let's start with what Squid Game is. And if you haven't heard, you might be living under a rock, because it is the biggest Netflix show ever. And that is amazing. That is so cool, because you got the South Korean show, which is already a barrier of entry to a lot of people out there. And of course, there's dubbing and subs and all that other stuff, which we will touch on in just a second. But it's just really cool to see that this South Korean made thing for Netflix is the thing that made records. Like, that is awesome. Not like Stranger Things or anything like that, right? And something about like foreign film and television breaking the mold. It reminds me of like Parasite, or even to a level Shang-Chi. I just love Asians are winning right now. It's really making me happy that people are paying attention to the art that I'm going to say Asians in general, but also South Koreans, like, they have a lot to bring to the table, and we can see that, especially in something like Squid Game. So with Squid Game, it is the story, long story short, we have essentially the whole show revolves around the idea of class and class struggles and a lot of poor versus rich type of stuff. And when it comes to the very poor, the people who are in debt, the people who, if they don't pay up, they will get in a ton of shit, or they will die, or they are at the end of their rope and they have the worst lucks ever. But the silver lining is you have a mysterious rich organization, or you don't even know that at that point. It's just rich people invite poor people to play games, and they don't say what those games are. They don't even call them Squid Games or anything like that. They just want you to play games. And you have like a guy who goes around playing this very simple game of, I guess, it's almost like square pogs, but in South Korean, but they're not pogs. They look like paper or origami, but they look thicker, and then you smack them. And this makes no sense if you haven't seen the show, but essentially you're just trying to flip your opponent's square object, and if you do that, you win the game, and you use your square object to slam, like a slammer, like Pogs, the other square object, and it flips, then you win, and you win some money. And if you got the taste of that and you really like that idea of winning money for games, then you get invited to be part of, let's say, the Squid Games. And our heroes eventually, or I guess our cast, not all of them are heroes, in fact most of them aren't, realize that very quickly within the first game that they play, it's very mysterious. They like pick you up, put you to sleep, they bring you to an island, and you're put into like prison outfits, basically. I guess game show contestant outfits is what they would call them, but prison outfits, I would say. And then you sign a bunch of waivers saying, hey, you can't give up. There's a bunch of rules, like you all can stop playing the games if the majority votes that no one wants to play anymore, or things like I'm trying to remember here. You can't stop playing if you started playing the game, otherwise you're eliminated. And in the hook of the show is, if you get eliminated in the show, you die, like gruesomely. And the show is not afraid to show you death, people getting shot in the head, gunned down, a little bit of gross stuff. But I will say, with the violence in the show, it's not so nasty and gratuitous in such a way that's like gore porn, if you know what I mean. Like Saw does this, I find, or Final Destination, and like all these like old styles of horror and nastiness. And I might be saying this wrong, but you know what I'm talking about, the shots that just kind of linger for too long to be like, hey, look how gross we are. That's Captain Meatball you're hearing in the background. He's scratching his head to the idea of Squid Game. But anyways, so it's not any of that, or Hostel. Let's say Hostel. A lot of these deaths are like very quick. They are gruesome. Like you see the blood, you see them shoot them in the head and whatever, stomach, and people are, I don't know, glass and stomach and all these other things. And they don't linger on it, but you do feel it every time someone dies in this show. So they play games like red light, green light in this game. And I should, let me stop here and say, I'm going to be spoiling stuff. I won't get into every single story beat because I'm bound to forget something, but I will spoil stuff. So let's go with red light and green light was the first game, and everybody knows how that there's a bunch of memes from this that game already on Twitter, which are hilarious. We have the honeycomb game, which I think is fantastic. It's like this honeycomb dessert looking thing, and you have to use, I want to say like a toothpick type of situation to try to remove a shape from the honeycomb. And if you break the honeycomb while you're trying to remove the shape from the honeycomb, then you die. And that's a really thrilling game. And in fact, I saw a story that says a Korean man who, of course, like in Korea, they sell these treats, these honeycomb treats, and business went way, way, way up because of Squid Game, which I just love that idea. Speaking of, there's quite a few like funny stories that have come out of this. So like the creators of the show, they had like a phone number, part of the cards that the people give when they want you to become part of these Squid Games. And when Netflix showed this card, a lot of people started calling that number because they're like, I want to be part of these Squid Games. And now that person is getting like 4,000 calls a day. I could be exaggerating, but someone actually owns the number on the card and they are being harassed. And it's funny because they're all like kind of prank calls, I guess, but it's also unfunny because, man, wouldn't that suck to just get a bunch of phone calls from people being like, hey, I'm calling the number from Squid Game, and you at home being like, man, they didn't even tell me that they were going to use my phone number in their show, their very successful show. At least give me some royalty for that, for God's sake. But anyways, Netflix will not be doing that because they have removed the number from the card in Squid Games. And a lot of people are saying, get ready to see a lot of Squid Game Halloween costumes. And I say, bring it freaking on. I love those suits with the PlayStation shapes on their faces. I think it's just like part of the great thing about this show is that it has fantastic art direction. I was going to say cinematography, which is true, but it also just sets a mood very well. Like it has a lot of personality, especially with all of the stuff that happened on the island. All the games have a distinct like playground vibe to it, which is kind of the point, but also all of the minion type of dudes with their pink kind of Breaking Bad rain jacket, kind of rubbery looking suits, but you know, PlayStation faces and all that stuff. There is something really distinct about that it's very memorable, which helps with the show's personality, because even after all is said and done and Squid Game is out of our memory and it's not as fresh, when we think of Squid Game from here on out, we're going to think of these like green track suits, and we're going to, I'm going to say tracksuit. I keep saying prison, but like they do look like just tracksuits. And we're going to think of the PlayStation faces, or the frontman mask in his like kind of spooky black outfit and all that other stuff. And I think that's just such a really cool thing about this show that makes it stand out, is all of that really good art that they have in the show. Now, let's go ahead and backtrack to some of the other games that they play. They play Marbles, which is also the best episode in the season for my money. I think it's such a fun thing that they do, which is they essentially get everyone to team up, and everyone's picking their teammate and all this other stuff. And once you finish picking your teammate, it turns out they're not your teammate. They're your enemy, and you're going to play marbles, different ways of playing marbles, however you want to do it. And if you win, you survive. And if you lose, then you die. Or, you know, you will be killing your teammate that you chose for the game, which, so good. There's a midnight fight that happens in the show where it just breaks out in just anarchy and chaos, and people are just killing each other. It's insane. There's a glass stepping bridge game where one is tempered glass and one is really shallow glass or something like that. So players choose a penny of who gets to go first, and you all have a set time limit as a collective to cross the bridge. Otherwise, bullet hell comes raining down on everyone, and it's quite dramatic. And great game, even though very unfair. And then we have the Squid Game, which after 2 explanations, I think I understand the game. It's kind of confusing because there's something where you hit a specific spot and people say secret inspector, which I don't understand. And then you're trying to get from one end of the squid on the outline in the sand to another end of the squid drawing, and you have someone trying to block you, and they can block you by just doing whatever the fuck they want. They can basically stab you if they really want. Any means necessary to stop you from getting to the other side of this squid drawing, they will do. And it makes for a thrilling climax to the whole series. Now, I will say with this show, I really, really, really enjoyed the first 6 episodes, even the 7th episode. I will say towards the end of Squid Game, I'm not sure I love how it sticks the landing. I think some of the later episodes get weaker per se. And there are parts of the choices towards the end of the show which I appreciated. I always try to give shows the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, what is in the creator's head? Why do they want to do it this way? And although I appreciate what they're trying to do, I really think they should have left well enough alone with some of the choices that they make, which we will get to in just a second, because I'm going to rewind to just the cast that I really want to shout out. I am going to butcher all of these names, so I won't. I'll try my best. We have Gi-hun, that character. He's our main protagonist. I just love his arc. He's a true kind of just... he is so pitiful, and he plays the actor, Lee Jong-jae, plays it so well, and it's just, he's so pathetic, but he has such a... he wants to do good. Like, he does have a good heart, but he just makes so many wrong choices in life, and he's our main protagonist, and it's really great to see his journey throughout the show. We have Sang-woo, which his journey from like the pride of the town or the city to being like stone cold killer was amazing. Everyone's favorite over here, Kang Sae-bok, and I hope I said that right, because she is definitely the breakout of the show in a big way. Like, I think I remember seeing the casting director or whatever was saying that here are the famous people we want to be in this show, and I want the rest of them to come out of like nowhere, like be this, like give opportunity. And this person who is the badass girl in the show, and everyone knows exactly who I'm talking about. She is awesome. She makes it into the final 3, and it is just her arc in the show, phenomenal. So good. And she's just really cool to root for because she's so cool. Like, she plays everything so cool. Everyone's like, damn, I want to be like her. We have Oh Il-nam, who is the old guy in this show. I really, really like this character, but I have so much to say, which everyone knows what I'm talking about if you've seen the show. And again, if you haven't seen the show, then what are you doing? Don't listen to this. I'm spoiling stuff. And we have like, there's an evil guy who I don't know his name. I'm scrolling. I think it's Duck Soo or something like that. He plays a guy with like this rad tattoo, but he betrays a lot of people, and he's just here to fuck things up, and he's a big slime ball, and he has no problem killing people because that's the whole thing. Like, even if you kill people in this game show kind of format, then that's okay, because it just adds money to the pot, because everybody who dies adds money to this big jackpot towards the end. We have Han Min-yo, who is just plays kind of, without trying to sound reductive, she kind of plays like the kooky crazy character in the show. She is interesting. I think I wanted to like her more than I did, and she's very charismatic, which is why I don't dislike the character, because she's very interesting as an actress to watch, but part of her is like a little too crazy and maybe not as believable, but she does have a rad ending where she kind of just fucks up the evil guy and they kind of fall to their death together, and it's nice. I did like that. We have the front man, who I talked about before, who's like the guy in the black mask and you don't know who he is. We have Hwang Jun-ho, who basically is the detective who just kind of is trying to find his brother, so kind of hitches his ride to the island and has his own side adventure. Barely talks to any of the main cast of this show. Just really just having his own side adventure, which is like the video game hitman, where he's putting on costumes, getting access to all these other places, gets found out, has to take out a bunch of guys, and then does the process over again until eventually we'll get to our first twist here and ending, where this detective guy, after so much trouble finding where his brother is and finding out what the Squid Games are and taking notes on his phone, which his phone battery is incredible because when they start the show, he has it 40%. And then he records a bunch of stuff and makes a bunch of voice memos, and he's there for days. And by the end of the show, he has 19%. So I just want to say, where do I get that phone? That's amazing. Okay, anyways, a little bit of a tangent there. And he finds his brother because his brother shoots him. He is the front man, and it was a twist I was not expecting, and I really love the acting in here because the way he goes down, and we assume he dies, but we don't know, is that the brother shoots him because the detective, he found out too much. So even though he was been trying to find his brother, it doesn't matter because he found his brother. So you see it in his face where he's like, oh shit, I spent all this time trying to find my brother, and he was right here the entire time, and he's running this entirely insane game show situation where it just kills a bunch of people for money. So I really liked the way his story wrapped up, even though it's quite sad. He really didn't accomplish anything at the end of the day. The bad guys won in this situation, but it was really cool to see him go from like situation to situation. Like, he's such a very capable detective up until the very end, but it was good. I did like it. And let's see here. There's a lot of other side characters in this that, I mean, I feel like I can talk about Squid Game for quite a while, but I think I'm going to forego that in lieu for just like, oh, there is one character that I forget her name, but she's in the Marble episode and she's in the Tug of War episode too, but it's, let's see, it's Kang Saibok, the badass girl's like friend, let's say, in the show, and they have such an just the Marble episode. It's just so good. Whoever she's partnered with in that episode just stands out in my mind because she's just so well acted, where she's like, listen, let's just do it all in one shot. Like, we have, I forget, like an hour or 30, I forget the time limit, to complete this Marble game, but let's just do it all in one shot. So for the in time up until the timer runs out, let's just get to know each other. And they exchange stories and all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, she purposely loses because she has nothing to live for, and she lets Kang Saibok's character move on to the next round kind of thing, which is like brutal, and it sucks because like you really grow to like this character and then they just shoot her. And that's a lot of the show, is they try to inject a lot of personalities in the show. Like, there's a lot of good character work in this show. I would say a lot of them feel very distinct and not really the same. Like, it's just, well, I guess that's what distinct means, but I just found like they're all really recognizable characters, and they stand out in a way that is very watchable for a TV show, which is a good thing, right? So another thing that I disliked, and I just have to get this off my chest, but there's a VIP part of the show where some of the Korean characters start speaking English, and that there is a bunch of English dudes coming, or VIPs, who have the worst, like, all the Korean actors do such a good job with their acting in this. And then you got these very generic VIP white men in this show who just have the worst lines. Like, I'm not sure if it was on purpose or not, but it just sounded like video game dialogue and bad video game delivered dialogue. And it was kind of charming, I think. Like, part of it was like, this is hilariously bad, but I'm like, well, the rest of the show is really good, so why did you make this choice? I don't know. I have no idea. Just a pet peeve of mine there. And speaking of like the languages, I really want to go to my initial worry of Squid Game, which was when I every time I watch anything that's foreign, I really, really enjoy watching it in its native language. And there is, I will always watch stuff with subtitles on because I love that stuff. When I'm watching with native language, get the real performances and subtitles. And then things on Twitter started escalating, or I always say trending, not escalating, where people were complaining about the translation, specifically of Squid Game, and it became a whole conversation of translators in Hollywood or in media, in television, and all that other stuff where they're underappreciated. So it's just like, do a rush job, get it out the door. And I think that's true. That has to be true, because it feels like a lot of people for different languages across the board. Like, I have a friend who speaks a lot of Spanish, and whenever she reads Spanish subtitles for things, she'd be like, well, that's not what they said. And it seemed like that was particularly true for Squid Game. And it's hard because with translators, like, A, you have to be fluent in both languages. B, there's a lot of context that you miss between languages. Like, not everything translates from one to one, because cultures are completely different. So a saying in one culture might not bleed onto a saying in another culture, and that's fine. It just might not translate very well. But with Squid Game, it seemed like there was better translations than others. Now, I really want to say that I think ignorance is bliss when it comes to this stuff, because I was really enjoying Squid Game until I saw the trending on Twitter that the translations are not, in fact, very good. But to me, I got the gist of it. I don't think it's a very hard show to follow. I mean, like, visually, people die, so it's not a happy show. But like, a lot of apparently sentences and meanings of scenes can shift drastically, apparently, because of the translation. Now, I did stick with what I started with from the beginning. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to switch to the dub version, which apparently does a better job translating than the subbed version of the show, which is bananas. And there's a different setting between English closed captioning and something else closed captioning. I don't know. You can look into it. I'm just saying that, like, after all of the hubbub of the terrible translations in Squid Game, I found it easy enough to follow the rest of it. And I'm sure some of the scenes would have had hit a little bit different tonally, but I truly think that I got the gist of what the show is trying to tell me under the regular translation. But that's all to say that I think that people should get paid more for translating something. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Anyways, rant over. And going back to why I brought that up in the first place. Yes, the English voice VIP people suck. It's just, they're such bad voice actors. Okay, so between like the climax of the show in the last two episodes, where like Kang Sae-bok's character, she dies, and I think it's crazy how she dies too, because she's such a mainstay of the character, and then I guess Gi-hun, the main characters, I want to say are they best friends, or they're just childhood friends? I don't know. When that guy just kills her in cold blood, like it's just with a steak knife, even, like, it's really dramatic, and I was like, oh shit. But also, I was really sad to see that's the way she goes. But in this show, they just kill people. Like, it's one of those things where they don't draw it up. It's like, hey, this makes sense in this story to kill this person in this brutal way, and there's not going to be this huge fanfare before this character dies. She's just going to die. And I kind of appreciate that decision. And then whenever they get to the end where Gi-hun and Sang-woo are fighting each other in the Squid Game, I think it's like a really fun climactic fight. And when Gi-hun finally wins and Sang-woo kills himself, spoilers again, I guess, spoilers. If you're listening to this, go watch Squid Game first. I think that ending was good, and then it keeps going, which is the tough thing about this show, and what I might not like about it upon reflection. I finished it about like a couple days ago, and I had some time to think about this, but the show keeps going where Gi-hun, he doesn't want to use any of the money that he won from the Squid Game. So many people died from Squid Games, and there was a lot of drama that happened, and so much, like the tug of war stuff where people fall down, the marbles, people getting shot in the head, all of it is very, very intense. And Gi-hun doesn't want anything to do with it, because he just went through something entirely traumatic. Like, and his mother dies at the very end of the movie, or the show too, which is insane. He just has the worst luck ever, and even though he won just a stupid amount of money, he refuses to use it, which is something. And then the show keeps going in a direction that I've come away just being like, man, again, I respect creator decisions, but I just don't love this choice, which is the old man that he befriended the entire show and who he loses, or I guess wins, in a game of marbles with in episode 6, after cheating, by the way, which is also an amazing little layer to it. Cheating with a man who has a tumor and gets memory loss. It turns out this guy, Il Nam, was the mastermind behind it all. He is the creator. He wanted to be part of these games. And what I don't like about this, he's his Gambu, if you will, his best friend or partner. I forget what the exact terminology is, but it just really takes away from some of the best scenes in this show where Gi-hun, you learn that he loves. Ultimately, he's not a violent person. He wants to play things right. He doesn't like to see people die. And his heart is trying to be in the right place. And he connects with this old man who ends up just being the mastermind. Like, it sucks. It really does, I think, because it just means that the relationship throughout the entirety of the show was kind of fabricated and fake, where a lot of the best scenes are like, oh man, like there's a genuine friendship, it felt like, between Gi-hun and this old man, Il Nam. And yeah, I just did not love it. So you still have it at the end where Gi-hun's like, whoa, you're the bad guy? Well, now I hate you, and we're going to play this final game, and oh, you're dead? Fuck you. Like, it's just like, blah. It just doesn't sit with me right. And that's where I'm coming away with it. And then Gi-hun, he dyes his hair red and it looks terrible. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to make sure no one ever plays these Squid Games again, because he sees the guy from the beginning of the game trying to recruit people to play Squid Game, and he finds a card on him and all this other stuff. And the ending implies that Gi-hun's going to go out there and take down the whole shebang, which, I don't know. In a season 2, I'm not sure if that's what I want. I'm not even sure if I want a season 2. It's incredible that the show got made in the first place. I saw that it took 10 years or so for it to get made, and it's just insane because, like, it's such a good idea. And I was reading a thing where it's like, well, everyone wants to know that, you know, Squid Game ripped off Hunger Games or whatever it is. And it's like, well, if Squid Game might have came first, and then Hunger Games would have ripped off Squid Game, which ripped off like Battle Royale and all this other stuff. So I don't know. End of the day, everyone rips off each other. But also, end of the day, it takes a long fucking time to like pitch something, it seems like. I was reading like a lot of just stories like that where it's like, hey, we just finished a show or a movie. It's just put on ice for just 5 to 15 years. Even though you've completed it, you just have to try to pitch it around, and people will turn it down left and right and center and all this other stuff. And it's crazy to think that this show got turned down for 10 years straight. And then suddenly it's like, you know what? A show about class struggles, very relevant right now. Battle Royale, people know what Fortnite is. Let's do it. And look at it. It's literally the most successful Netflix show ever, and that's awesome. So I also saw that the creator, first of all, had a hell of a time with just creating the show, directing, and losing teeth and all this other stuff, but it sounds like a season 2 of the show is going to revolve more around the frontman character, which ends up being the detective's brother, and more on like the Korean police. So I guess that can involve Gi-hun trying to take down the organization. I forget what they call themselves. The Squidders. They don't call themselves that. But yeah, I think the show is really good. And I think there is stuff that doesn't land entirely. Like, I think the ending definitely flubs it up a little bit, but I was not mad at it. I think the beginning episodes are just so good, and especially that episode 6 that I was talking about, that it didn't need that extra twist of, yes, the old man guy is the evil one all along. It really bothers me, as you can tell. I also forgot to shout out a character in this show that surprised me, honestly. His name is Anupam Tripathi. He plays Ali Abdul in this show, and he's a Pakistan actor who's speaking Korean. And something about that is really nice because, I mean, I guess he's a token character in this Korean show, but it's nice that it's not a white man playing that character. You know, it's cool that to see a Pakistan actor speaking Korean and going through the motions of this show for some reason. I think there's a really interesting dynamic to that, because like they bring it out being like, why'd you move to Korea or whatever it is. And I just really like that. And also the actor does such a good job, and he's so like innocent and he wants to do the right thing. And it only makes it even harder when Sang-woo, the kind of villain, I guess childhood friend turned villain in this show, turns completely against this character and basically gets him killed. And you think about it, because the show frames it in a way that's like, well, Sang-woo is the bad guy because look what he just did to this person. But at the end of the day, there's can really only be one winner of this game. So everyone has to die. So if your life was on the line, as much as you don't want to kill someone, you're literally in games meant to kill other people. And if you don't win, then you die. So there is some interesting questions that come out of the show, kind of being like, well, how would I handle it? And how I would handle it is I would not do the Squid Games. I would not do it. It sounds like a bad idea. So I've heard from a few people being like, I'd do that. I'm like, did you watch the show? Like, there's some fucked up stuff that happens in this show. Anyways, all that to say is I really, really enjoyed Squid Game. I don't know. I feel like I have so much more to say about it, but you know, I don't know how much more I would add to it than what hasn't already been done. There is one last story, so I'm getting distracted here. I'm seeing a story here is that people made a real life Squid Games in real life, but of course without the killing. That's like the newest article being like, hey, this town, or I'm not sure if it's town, but anyway, someone out there is trying to make Squid Games, like all of those games recreated once again, but without the killing. So in a way, they're just really just making childhood games again, because a lot of these games are very simple, like the tug of war. Everyone's played tug of war. I guess you don't want to do the midnight fight, because that's just wailing on each other at midnight and seeing who survives. And the glass stepping game seems extremely dangerous. So you know what? I'd be curious to see if people actually want to play these games in real life, or they just rather just watch it on TV. Okay, that is my discussion on Squid Game. I would rate this show, let's see, 9 out of 10 squids. There's barely a squid in this game. In fact, I would say there's not any physical squids in this game. Let's just say 9 out of 10 dudes in pink outfits with PlayStation. I sing PlayStation. They're very rudimentary shapes. Triangle, circle, square on their faces. All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Talking Tongue. I am losing steam. I am, let's say, I usually go to bed around, well, at this time, let's just say at this time, as of this recording. So from the beginning of this episode, I'm wired. And now I need to go to bed. So thank you for listening to another episode of Talking Tongue. We will have a guest next week. I promise. I'm going to talk about Venom. God, I have so much to say about that. But until then, if you haven't already seen Squid Game, please go watch it. And if you have seen Squid Game, check out more Korean art. I've been looking into like other stuff. Apparently Alice in Borderlands is really good. I think there's a show called Made out there. I'm not sure if that's Korean, but I saw someone tweet that and it looked like they were showing the Korean poster of it. But Alice in Borderland seems to be the show that most people are comparing to, and there's one more other one too. But it kind of goes back to, I forget what episode I said this on, but it's all to quote, you know, the director of Parasite here, Bong Joon-ho, and really just paraphrasing, but essentially you can get through the barrier of subtitles is something that if you overcome, there's a whole wealth of media out there to explore. That I'm obviously, again, paraphrasing, but it kind of goes back to like, look how successful this show is. We got to give more foreign television and movies a chance, because there's amazing stories that they're out there that, you know, can make us more creatively inspired, but also, you know, there's more to media and television than just what we see in North America, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right, I rambled so much today. I'm running out of breath. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Talking Tongue. I'll see you guys on another episode next week. And until then, my world famous catchphrase is waka waka.